extraordinarily patronizing and insulting to Catholics. If it had been said about the Jewish community, if it had been said about the Islamic community, within 10 minutes there would have been an apology and a complete distancing from those remarks. Hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping that she's going to distance herself from these very insulting remarks of her chief of staff.
All right, that's Cardinal Dolan. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. He sat between Trump and Hillary at the Alfred E. Smith dinner last night. And, of course, what he's talking about are the emails by Clinton operatives, Podesta, the whole bunch of them, trashing Catholicism and mocking evangelicals. And Bill Donohue, our next guest, president of the Catholic League, Newsmax contributor, and author of Unmasking Mother Teresa's Critics. Bill, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
You were here last week, and I think it was last week. It's Friday already. Maybe it was earlier this week, and you were talking about it, basically saying what the Cardinal, is saying, hoping that Hillary, who now you said owns this whole issue, comes out and says something about it. She's had many opportunities. Last night at the dinner, when things got serious, would have been a great opportunity, especially after she was attacked by Trump, which we'll play in a minute. She hasn't said anything about this.
No, and she does own it because, if Podesta was some low-level staff person, that would be different, or a volunteer. This is her chief campaign chairman who's involved in this exchange of anti-Catholicism, even admitting to setting up phony, dummy Catholic organizations for the purpose of sowing seeds of division within the Catholic Church. And she doesn't want to apologize for this? Well, I do know one thing. A lot of Catholics have taken note of this. Now, the mainstream media, for the most part, have not given this kind of coverage. That's why Cardinal Dolan is correct, that if it had been other groups, people would have been outraged. But there's not enough of a price to be paid. Part of the blame, by the way, goes to Catholics, who should show more outrage when their religion is being trashed.
I couldn't agree more. Let's listen to and watch what Donald Trump said, once again, about Hillary at the dinner, which many think was inappropriate because it's supposed to be in light spirit. But anyway, here's what he said.
For example, here she is tonight in public, pretending not to hate Catholics. Now, if some of you haven't noticed, Hillary isn't laughing as much as the rest of us. That's because she knows the jokes. And all of the jokes were given to her in advance of the dinner by Donna Brazil.
Okay, so the first part there, Hillary pretending not to hate Catholics. Over the line for that setting?
Well, for that setting, what's interesting is, let's talk about the setting. Almost everybody in that room is a liberal Democrat. Who's there? It's the major media, liberal Democrat. The New York City elite, liberal Democrat. Catholic Charities. I don't know if there's a single Republican in the United States who works for Catholic Charities. So he knew what he was going into there. It's kind of the lion's den on that kind of situation. My own advice would have been to keep it more in the roast area as opposed to getting too political. But given that crowd there, it doesn't surprise me they would react there. And, liberal Catholics, by the way, are never offended by anti-Catholicism unless you say you're not an independent thinker. Oh, they don't like that because they think they're independent thinkers.
Well, let me ask you this. Would this have been a great opportunity for Hillary, because the tone had turned nasty, would this have been a good opportunity for her to get up there and say, okay, look, I just want to get this out of the way. This is a perfect setting. There were some emails that questioned Catholicism and mocked Catholicism, and I just want to say that was wrong, and I apologize on behalf of my campaign. I mean, should she have taken that opportunity? Would it have been the right platform?
I think it might have been better for her to release a statement prior to the dinner itself. Right. I'm not sure the dinner, it is supposed to be a fun night.
Right.
So I'm not going to criticize her on that. But she kind of owned Cardinal Dolan last night, put him in a tough position. Am I the only guy in the country who's noticed one thing of somebody who wasn't there? Right. Her husband?
Yes.
No, this is important because I don't care where he was. She was able to kind of schmooze with Cardinal Dolan a lot more than Trump because Trump had his wife there. Her husband was AWOL. He often is AWOL, but this gave her this opportunity.
You think that was purposely done?
Listen, knowing the Clintons and the way they lie about everything, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
All right. Let me ask you this. At the debate, Donald Trump brought up well, abortion came up in the context of the Supreme Court and justices and what the justice, then Roe v. Wade and guns and all that. And I want you to listen to what, and I know you put out a statement about this topic today. I want you to listen, all of us watch and listen to that segment of the debate from the other night.
Based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month on the final day. And that's not acceptable.
Well, that is not what happens in these cases. And using that kind of scare rhetoric is just terribly unfortunate. You should meet with some of the women that I've met with, women I've known over the course of my life. This is one of the worst possible choices that any woman and her family has to make.
All right, so I took Trump to task a little the night of the debate for not, firing back and knowing that rarely, if ever, does killing the baby on the way out in a late term save the life of the mother. There's no reason to deliver it dead when you could deliver it alive, and it's very rarely used for the health. And health means anything. Health of the mother is a red herring that's thrown in there that means headaches, anything. So, but the more I think of it, no other presidential candidate, no other Republican really, mainstream or president, gets up there on a national stage and describes what partial birth abortion is. So I applaud him for that.
Well, let me tell you something. She said that she's spoken to some women who've gone through some tough procedures. Too bad she never met Gianna Jensen. Gianna Jensen survived an abortion because her grandmother told her mother to abort her. Now, I'd love to know what Hillary would say to that. And by the way, this idea that it doesn't include ripping you out, they're saying this in the New York Times today, and these people saying that's not what it is. Let me tell you something. Dr. Carolyn Westhoff testified back in 2007, I believe it was, and she was under oath, and she said, yes, this is what we do. We take the scissors, we jam it into the skull of the infant.
Suck out the brains.
We drain out the liquid, and that's what they do. There's no need to lie about it. Then they're proud of it. They defend it. They've never found an abortion that they couldn't justify. And now one of the doctors says, well, we don't call it partial birth abortion.
No
Guess
kidding.
what? I'm sure that he calls throwing up emesis, which is the medical term, but that's enough to make me puke.
All right. Well, let me ask you something. I'm Jewish. You're Catholic. I got a debate coming up at a synagogue, and I know what I'm going to run into. A bunch of liberals, for the most part, and you, for the most part, would often run into a bunch of Catholic liberals.
Al Smith type.
Yeah. So why is that? What are we doing? What are we missing, you and I?
It's part of the elite establishment. It's part of the cocktail set. It's the kind of people that they associate with each other. So if somebody might have some qualms about abortion, when you get into that nest, it's like a little ghetto. They're going to kind of move you the right way. You have to be tolerant. They're certainly not tolerant of the baby. And if this is a woman's right that you kill a baby who's 80% born, they don't think there's anything wrong with partial birth. What about Kermit Gosnell? What about George the Killer Tiller? George Tiller committed over 60,000 abortions. He was proud that most of them were partial birth abortions. Why do they lie about it?
And of course, Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood is all about eugenics.
Right.
But even beyond that, just the whole political spectrum. Why is it that so many Catholics voted for Obama and are going to vote for Hillary without even thinking about it? And the same for the Jewish population.
For the most part, in terms of the Catholic population, most of them are non-practicing. As far as Catholics who go to church on a weekly basis, they are overwhelmingly conservative. They accept the church's teachings. You get these people who are no more Catholic than I am Buddhist, quite frankly, but they report that way. So they show up in the polls that way. The last time they went to church maybe was Easter and then Christmas, if they went there at all.
Where do you believe we're headed after the election? I mean, we're divided. We're a greatly divided nation. Things, don't get done anymore in Washington, which I don't think is a bad thing. People say it's a bad thing by definition. I don't believe that. Are we headed for the worst division ever with Hillary or Trump in office?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I wrote several books. One of them was called The New Freedom back in 1990. It came out. I talked about the atomization of our society. It doesn't begin in Washington. It begins in the culture. We are a divided people. Now it's at a record siren level. I've never seen anything like it where the divisions are this strong. God only knows what will happen this Thanksgiving as Americans of all faiths get across the table, because we're divided
that's
within
after the
the
election,
families.
yeah.
Exactly. It's a very ugly situation, and it's only going to get worse, I hate to say.
It is unfortunate, but always love having you up.
Thank you so much.
You know how much I admire you.
Oh, I admire you. Stick to your guns.
You speak, and you're not afraid, and you're correct to boot. So Bill Donohue, ladies and
Thank you
gentlemen,
so
check
much.
out his latest, Unmasking Mother Teresa's Critics. And there it is on your TV screen. All right, joining us after the break, Alan Dershowitz will be here, and we'll do Gimme 5 as well. We have a lot to talk about with Alan Dershowitz. What happens if Hillary wins? Should the Republicans then hold confirmation hearings on Obama's Supreme Court nominee? And what if there's a contested election like in 2000 and it goes to the Supreme Court? There's 8 justices. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has trashed Donald Trump and then had to apologize after. Does she recuse herself? A lot of good stuff to talk about with Alan when we come back. Don't go away.